Hey nerds, welcome to the Nerd Rundown presents Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. I'm Darren Stemple, and with me today are some of the biggest nerds I know, including my co-pilot Eric Hare.
Greetings, my nerdlings.
And Big Mork 3000.
That threw me off, Eric. I wasn't ready for that. I got it. Hello, everyone.
Mission accomplished.
We have
Just
finally
gonna chalk that one up for me.
finally made Morg speechless.
Yeah, let me chew on some chapstick so I can go into an alternate self and have a good comeback for that.
Yeah, there you go. I like the movie reference for the movie we are about to review, which is 2023's 95th annual. What other number can we throw in there? Best Picture winner for the Oscar. Gosh, I screwed this up on the rundown. What is it? It's the Oscar for the Best Picture. That's what it is.
Yes.
The Oscar for the Best Picture winner, and honestly won like every award throughout the award season. And then cleaned house at the Oscars, winning for Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor, Ke Huy Quan. I don't know if I got that right. I think it's Ke Huy Quan. Yeah. Jamie Lee Curtis won for Best Supporting Actress, and Michelle Yeoh won for Best Actress. And then the Daniels won for Best Director. It won for Best Original Screenplay as well. I think there's one more win in there. 7 wins in total. Very, very impressive. So let's start off by talking about our first reactions to this incredible movie. And I've stated on the rundown or some other show before on here that this was an existential experience for me watching this movie. Number one, I had pneumonia, so there was like heightened levels of fever that were helping. However, it's a movie that with each watch or rewatch, I've enjoyed just as much as that first time. So it definitely has cemented itself as an incredible movie in my pantheon. I am looking forward to talking about it. But Eric, you watched it second out of this group. So you watched it on your phone on a plane, right?
I did, yeah. Yep. Coming back from Florida a couple weeks ago.
Thoughts?
I loved it. I really did. For once, the Oscars got it right. The voters got it right.
Yeah.
Although I would not have been sad to see Top Gun win it, but that was not artsy enough for them. The little people, the little people enjoyed that movie too much, and so I should say the dirt people enjoyed that movie too much, and so the cloud people couldn't vote for it. So, but the cloud people did vote for this movie, and I tend to agree with them that this one was terrific. The concept I thought was great. What would happen if you put your mom in the Matrix? And overall, it's funny because you see a lot of movies about fathers and sons, and you see a lot of movies about like fathers and daughters and stuff like that, but you don't see a ton of movies of moms and daughters and like that relationship with each other. At least I don't see them all that often. And so
not necessarily
ultimately,
target audience on that one.
Yeah, right. Ultimately, it was just incredible, both visually, the storyline, the plot line, and emotionally, it was just terrific. Like everybody in this movie, even Jamie Lee Curtis was just, from I will say, performance-wise, everything was really, really great. And we'll talk about it, but I honestly didn't even know that was Jamie Lee Curtis for like 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even know
like,
that was her.
That?
I was like, who is that? Like, I know that voice, and then I kept looking at her, and I'm like, oh my God, it's Jamie Lee Curtis. And I was like, holy smokes, and
I
so
only knew because I knew she was in the movie. Like,
yeah, and I did.
I knew it was her.
I didn't, and it took me longer. I actually was a little embarrassed. I was like, I had to stop and rewind, and look, and I did stop and rewind the movie several times because I was like, did I just see?
Yeah.
Because again, I was watching on my phone, so
Yeah.
I was like, did I just see what I thought I saw? And it's because there's stuff that happens, and if you don't like the first watch, you may miss some stuff or some little chunk of dialogue. Like I had to rewind a couple scenes to make sure I got the dialogue right.
Yeah.
And so
even just the story elements of a multiverse can be confusing, and
for sure. So ultimately, love the movie, and I thought they did great. I thought they did a great job of putting everything together, and then for the Oscars to get it right also.
So most of you have heard Eric give that and me give my thoughts on Everything Everywhere All at Once, but Morgan has not been able to ever say it on air because he just watched it last night. So Morgan, fresh reaction.
Thought it was crap. No, I'm kidding. No, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good movie. I see what all the hype was about. It was definitely deserved the awards. I personally think somebody else should have got the one Jamie Lee Curtis got.
Okay.
Don't argue. Yeah.
The actress that plays Joy,
Stephanie Shu.
She definitely deserved an award. But no, I loved it. I liked the way they did the whole multiverse concept.
Yep.
And it had some of the best action I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
The fight scenes are amazing. The comedy was good. Like, every performance is fantastic. I can't believe Short Round still sounds like Short Round, even though he's an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And I say Short Round because I'm going to mispronounce his name, and
Key.
I'm going to go Short Round.
Call him Key.
He was introduced to me like
Or
that.
Data.
or Data.
Or Data. Yeah. No, it was very good. It's one that you watch it. I only watched it once through, but I feel like I understood it. Like, I feel like I didn't need a second viewing right away. And that's not to me, meant as an offense to anyone.
Me especially.
I felt like I'm not an idiot, so I only need to watch it once. But I will say, however, my wife, about an hour in, she checked out.
Yeah.
Now, she was kind of tired. And about an hour in, it does almost feel like it could be the end to the movie because of what happens with some of the action sequences. But when she's like, "Oh my God, there's an hour left still," she's like, "All right, I'm done."
Yeah.
And she checked out. But that's just, that's just her.
Yeah. So when I watched it, and then I remember I texted our group chat. I was like, "Oh man, that might be the movie of the year." And Eric was like, "Better than Top Gun Maverick," and it hurt me because I was like, "Oh my God, I love Top Gun Maverick like more than life itself these days." But then watching this movie, it really did. It didn't take me long to say, yeah, it's Top Gun Maverick will be like the love of my life that maybe that I didn't get to marry, and I got to marry Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is like just as freaking good. That's a weird, terrible analogy, but I love both those movies. They're both great in their own way. So watching it, I just remember being like, God, what did I just experienced every emotion, every happy, sad laugh, my butt off, entertained to all immense levels. So that it felt like that's when I say, like, my mom was like, "You had an out of body experience watching that movie?" And I'm like, it wasn't necessarily out of body. It's just there was mainly the fever, that was. But again, just we'll get into like the characters, because again, Stephanie Shu is definitely an amazing performance in the movie, along with some others. But we'll get to that. Here's the synopsis, okay? Because if you think back to when we first got a trailer for this movie, about this time last year, because it came out in late April, I believe, we were
it debuted at South by Southwest at in like March of last year. This time March 11th, I think, or something like that, to be exact. But
oh man,
yeah. Sorry.
No, you're good. Good to know. So I feel like we covered it on the rundown as like part of the trailer training. I was like at the end, like this crazy movie with Michelle Yeoh. It's a pretty cool looking trailer. And then that was like didn't think about it for the longest time.
Right.
And then Bryant Castile, shout out to Bryant Castile, was on the show, said he watched it and said it was really, really good. And then a couple other people over the course of like the next few months were like, this is a pretty good movie. So when you're sick, you're like, I got some time to burn. Anyway, I just remember being like, yeah, it was a cool movie. And not really knowing anything about it. And then you read this synopsis. This is a big word. When an interdimensional rupture unravels reality, an unlikely hero must channel her newfound powers to fight bizarre and bewildering dangers from the multiverse as the fate of the world hangs in the balance. Which sounds like the baddest ass plot synopsis of all time. So you think about what the actual hell happens in this movie. That's a pretty good synopsis of it. So, whoa, because it's this original story that really just captures us, right? So, out of the story elements, what surprised you the most, Morgan? I'll start with you on that one. When you were watching it, you're like, oh shit, this is badass.
Yeah, I guess. Oh, geez, I don't know. All of it. The second Jamie Lee Curtis's character kind of changes, or I'll say no. What really like first got me was when you see the security footage in the background.
Oh, okay.
And Key is like flipping over tables and doing stuff, and you're like, and the TV's like kind of wigging out a little bit, and you're just like, what the hell is going on? And then as soon as it gets hooked, the way they did it was just awesome. When she like goes flying into the janitor's closet, like it was so cool, showing how it's like your consciousness almost is what leaves, not your body. Your body stays where it is. You can just bounce between bodies.
Oh, that was pretty badass.
I was like, I was like, whoa, that was I was hooked right there. I was like, I can't wait to see where this goes. And then especially when the antagonist shows up and does their thing. Yeah.
Okay. So I thought you were going to say something different, as there's a normal answer that usually gets said here. Eric, let me ask you then, what was the first part of this movie you're like, that's freaking badass?
Key's first fight sequence.
Yes.
The
fanny pack.
Caught me completely off guard because
that is pretty cool.
The setup of that character is a very demure, very reserved, quiet guy, who owns a laundry business.
How you picture him in real life. Just
like
nice
just
guy.
just a normal dude, and then all of a sudden he's not, but he looks a little different, and he's got a little different look to him, and he's
carries himself differently.
And I was like, whoa, what is happening here? And Morgan's part where he said that you could see him on the security footage again, that was one of the scenes I had to rewind because I'm like, did I just see something on the screen? Because again, my phone's it's a decent sized phone, but it's not a TV, so I'm like, I had to rewind it. I'm like, was something on the TV in the back there, but that was initially that was what caught me first, and I was like, oh man. I will say the thing that surprised me the most, because I think that was the other part to the question, was what surprised you most about it was overall how emotional the story was. Because
big time.
It was in multiple ways. I'll just say that. In a couple of different avenues. It was because as a husband and then also as a parent, you kind of could see that. So that's a really good point. And when we get into Act 3, I think we'll talk more about that. So as we kind of are talking about the plot or the plots and story elements, and kind of we maintained here
time here in the first act, which, if you've seen, again, spoiler. I don't know if we gave a spoiler. I feel like I did in my head, maybe.
I think at this point you got to know you're in for it.
Yeah, you got to know, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So in the first act, which is then titled at the end of the first act, everything, and that first act really was everything. It made everything that they did made you feel overwhelmed. It made you feel what they were feeling. You know, doesn't make you feel like you're a first generation immigrant, but you feel what they're going through a little bit, and the chaos that it is.
Yeah.
And it was just
making the food and the
yeah,
taxes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you got an audit coming up, and then there's a divorce coming, and it's just, I mean, they're throwing things at you, and it's. I remember watching that first act, just being like, oh, "Man, we're in the second act. Thank you." That was. It's a relief to be in the second act, and then, and then we'll get into the second act and how much of a trip that was. But honestly, when you think about how they set this movie up, everything is set up there in the first act, and it's so brilliantly interwoven into just a seamless but chaotic first act. So,
what I found most interesting was, and I guess if you don't really pay attention to everything, it can be challenging. But I felt like Wayman's description of the multiverse was very concise and very simple for a lot of people to understand, you know, because he explains it to Evelyn, you know, like, this is, you know, every decision that you make in life is a new it's a new one. A new one gets formed, and
new
all
life
you know,
path.
so right, and so right, and so I thought it was really cool, and I absolutely loved the stupid keywords that they had to say, the key phrases that they had to say, and how absurd.
Yes.
The more absurd it is, the better you're going to connect.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I think that was such a great place to put comedy in stuff, you know. So
just wait till we talk about the one act
oh my gosh,
two gentlemen were trying to do to help change.
Well, let's talk about the second act, because that's really where all this takes place. So
because the first act is really just kind of getting you introduced to Evelyn, who's Michelle Yeoh, her character.
You just
Evelyn.
basically understand she's tired of life. Like, she just hates her life.
Well,
but
I don't know that she hates her life. She just has so many responsibilities and so many things to do that
issues with her daughter.
It's just not a good life. Like, it's just a hardworking life, and it's just everything. But she's
stuck in a loop.
I think she has a lot of regrets, and you see that when she sees her other life paths, and you're like, oh, this one is like the most boring one.
Right, and so you get introduced to Stephanie Sue. Sorry, I keep saying her name wrong.
Joy.
Who plays their daughter Joy, and then you have Ki Hoi Kwan, who plays Waymond, who's the husband.
Yep.
James Hong is Gong Gong. He is like, I can't see him in anything and not see Big Trouble in Little China, but I love that guy. He is so good in everything that he does, and just absolutely terrific. You know, and then you get a couple of smaller characters. Jenny Slate has a character that she does in there that's really Big Nose.
That's how she's listed on IMDb. Is Big Nose.
Yes, Big Nose. And she. Great. Yeah, fight scene is terrific with the dog. It's just terrible. Jamie Lee Curtis, who again took me a couple to see who she was, but she plays Deirdre, I think.
Deirdre.
Deirdre. Yeah. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but Deirdre. Yeah, the IRS agent.
The auditor.
Yeah.
I was really the same way. I was like, who is this? Who is this in this freaking role? Yeah.
Well, and the IRS just goes like the movie is very kind of, I wouldn't say depressing, but it is, I guess depressing. Like it sets up that this is a very depressing life for these people, for everybody. The husband longs for release. The wife just is going through the motions. The daughter is extremely unhappy, and Grandpa, I don't know what he's doing, but they get to the IRS scene where they have to go meet with her. And the movie just goes bonkers like from there. It just is like it just totally changes.
And it's crazy how it all takes place there, but it also doesn't all take place there.
Right. Yeah. So very, very, very crazy. Very, gosh, it was really great.
So Key, we'll just call him Key. Mm-hmm. So Key, obviously, is very well known for his roles in Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom. And then also as Data in The Goonies.
Yep. Pinches of Power.
After that, he wasn't in much. He had a small role in Encino Man, which I think we talked about last week.
And Pretty in...
But then he,
he Pretty in Pink?
I don't think so.
I
thought he was in one of the John Hughes.
No, he wasn't.
I'm pretty sure he wasn't one.
Go ahead and look it up. But
that's why I'm not racist.
Either way, he started only being offered, stereotypical roles in films that were like the nerdy Asian guy, blah 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 blah, and that's just really, really sad. Just incredibly sad. But he did find a career in. He was not.
He was not.
No, I didn't think so.
Wrong guy.
He did find a career in stunt choreography, and he is on movies like X-Men. Was the stunt choreographer there. So it was really cool to see him still find a career in Hollywood. And he gets to put some of that stunt choreography to work in that fanny pack scene.
For sure.
That is a seminal scene.
Fanny pack scene.
Yeah, the fanny pack scene.
Some chapstick.
I mean, I was at a point when he was eating that chapstick, I am like, if this continues down this path, I don't know if this is the movie.
I was like, I can't see that again.
And then after the fanny pack scene, I'm like, I need more of this movie. I am locked in because it was cool. And then it was a really cool stylistic choice too from the directors and the cinematographer. When that elevator comes up, they're arguing, and it's a really cool scene because Gong Gong thinks that they're selling the business. Waymond is talking about the audit, or he's talking about something, and then she's talking about is this the multiverse? Is this the real Waymond or the other Waymond? And it's a real little chaotic scene, and then the elevator comes up, and the resolution changes, or resolution. When it goes to like a movie aspect ratio, that's what I'm thinking of.
The
aspect ratio. And it goes into a cinematic, even the music comes with it. It's just really, really cool choices like that throughout the movie where it was like, whoa, now we are in like, we're going into the blockbuster scene, where this is like, you can tell something big's going to happen. So glad that paid off. And Kung Fu is a big part of this movie, right? So Michelle Yeoh, really cool choice to have her kind of the way she learns Kung Fu in the movie is she can access different life paths from the multiverse, and the Kung Fu verse that she accesses is it's her career. It starts out as a Kung Fu actor in Hong Kong, and makes it over to overseas to America, and you can see her at different premieres. Premiere at the Crazy Rich Asians is in there. So it's really cool to see that like one part of her multiverse is actually Michelle Yeoh. I thought that was really cool. So I don't know. Cool. This is the act though where it just is bonkers. And I don't know. What was I lost my question in here, and I was going in a course of something. So if you guys have something about Act 2 you want to talk about, I can go and find my question. Sorry.
Well, I thought Act 2 was really great in not only setting it up with the multiverse type stuff, but you get introduced to Joy in a different format as the protagonist of this whole thing. So the antagonist of this whole thing, in that she plays a character who they refer to as Jobu Tupaki, I think is who, and so there's this mystery to who this person is, and so all that Wayman says is that, there's this villain that's trying to destroy all the universes, and trying to destroy you specifically in all of the universes, and you're like, that sounds very personal, very, and so
and specific,
right, and specific. And I think that the interesting thing to me was like at this IRS audit, you have this moment in time where Jamie Lee Curtis is trying to talk to this lady, and I don't know if any of you have had any run-ins with the IRS, but it's I have not, but my parents have described an IRS engagement that they had to go through, and it was hellish. I think my mom told this story one time about how she remembers hearing a conversation in the cube on the other side of the wall where the guy's like, the IRS agent said, this is how much you'll have left over. And he goes, well, that's only like $200 out of my paycheck, and the guy goes, I don't even have to leave you that, and so it was like, and so for me, I have like this personal connection to the IRS, or at least this story that's, going with. So when I'm listening to this or watching this IRS audit, I'm like, you need to be like present and focused on this, because you're literally going to lose everything.
Yeah.
And she's not, like the absolute worst time for Wayman to come in and like tell her all this different stuff. Yeah. But she's got the two,
the
Bluetooth headphones, or
they use to transport.
Yeah. Right. And I just thought it was just really, really cool. And I thought the setting up this villain that you don't see initially, and it isn't until much later that you, a little bit further in the second act, that you find out who the actual antagonist really is, and all of that. So, because basically she's just sending all these kind of minions to go after her and stuff. So,
well, so that's where I was like, lost my train of thought. Was okay. So Act 2 also introduces the villain of the story,
right.
Jobu Tupaki, who we find out is Elizabeth Shue's character.
Right.
Really cool intro with the, like, when she's like got her head cocked, and it's just like, it's like a clock, and it's like, and it was a really cool intro.
Yeah, and it takes over the joy from that world.
Yeah. And
her costumes, oh my gosh.
So Stephanie Shu, this is really her act. She dominates this act, and when she's finally introduced in person to Michelle Yeoh, what a scene where she confettis some dude, and pile drives another dude. Really great scene. What did you think of the villain there, Morg?
I thought, so when watching that, I was like, man, I really wish I could just watch them make this, because how they just had to reshoot it, because she's constantly like changing out like different versions of her, because that's her thing, is her mind was fractured.
Yeah.
Through the testing that we find out in this second act, because there's an alpha universe essentially where they can go into other universes. They figured out, and they were testing her, and they pushed her too hard. She fractured, and now she just is everything, everywhere, all at once.
Or can be.
So it's neat seeing her just change, and she could do stuff, and she's very good with phallic weapons, and like. I mean, it was just like, it was so ridiculous just watching her kick ass. It was so cool.
Yeah.
And the way they introduced her was just awesome. And then when you see her, and you know, our main character, she's just constantly like Joy, like
Yeah.
like this can't be my Joy. Like what's going on here?
Right.
You know, it was such a cool way to introduce a villain.
It's really cool that when they transfer back and forth through the different life paths, and they are like, they don't understand what, like, for example, I guess to make clear what I'm saying is when you first see the scene where they meet in the hallway, and she like kind of is like slapping her like this to when Michelle Yeoh is slapping
Like,
Jobu Tupaki like this, you're like, oh, what's going on? And then you see the scene with the hot dog fingers, which I have no interest in ever
weird.
Revisiting. That's like my
mustard and the ketchup.
Yeah, that was like my one. Like, okay, I don't need to see this. This is
yeah. I was like, I'm done.
But what's funny is you later learn that it's her toes that are like the strong part of her of that world that she grasps. So I thought that was really really interesting how you can get the skill and still not. She could have got the kung fu and not been able to be good at it, and she would have been knocked through the wall by Jamie Lee Curtis. So really cool when they show you how she can pick up different or like what comes from a different
I'll say it's
verse.
It's definitely where I started to get the Matrix vibes.
Yeah.
Because this is where you find out he's looking for the one,
right
of the of the main character to be able to fight the bad guy,
Right.
And basically, when you go into another version, you learn all their skills, just like
Right. I think
I know kung fu.
He refers to it like a clay pot. Like you go into each universe
and push it too hard, it'll crack and leak.
Right. Yeah.
I forgot about that line.
But yeah, and then you come across at some point Joy or Jobu
Tupaki or Juju Tawuki or some of Joju Chewbacca.
Right.
Some of her
she talks about the mind fracturing and her descent into nihilism, which is basically that if everything does happen everywhere all at once, nothing has any meaning. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Nothing matters. And so she refers to this as the bagel, the everything bagel. So this is a bagel that has everything on it, And so I thought that was really
clever.
Kind of a cool visual for people to see, So she creates this black hole that's a bagel, and so for her, everything and all of the experiences, everything in life is meaningless.
Yeah.
It's completely meaningless. And so that's your, I wouldn't say MacGuffin, but I guess that's the plot that she wants to destroy this universe or these multiverses because nothing matters. What does it even matter?
Why are we even here?
Right. And so Evelyn then has to...
I didn't think that's what it was for.
Yeah. Evelyn then has to try and fight that, and tell her that there ultimately is meaning, even if it's just one thing, it's there is meaning in there. So I thought that was a really cool way to visualize the nihilism that exists if you believe, if you have this, you can have this belief that nothing matters, nothing is, because everything is possible and nothing is possible, that type of thing. So
sure.
That was pretty interesting philosophically.
What did you think it was?
Yeah, so I thought it was solely a device to be able to essentially kill herself. Because she says, like, this is the only way to basically stop it all.
Yeah.
I think this is the only way I can end myself. And she's looking for Evelyn, the right one, because she wants somebody else that's as powerful as her that will understand it as well.
Yeah.
And hopefully go with her. Like, I didn't think the device would spread. I thought it was just solely like, this is the only way she can essentially self-delete herself.
Yeah.
Because nothing else would work.
Spoiler alert, you're both right.
Okay.
Actually. So
that works.
what we also find in this second act is the Alpha verse. And the Alpha verse is where Jobu Tupaki comes from, number one. It's the first universe out of all the universes to make contact with another universe. And everything centers around Michelle Yeoh's character, who I literally just forgot her name. It's
the king, Evelyn.
Evelyn, thank you. Evelyn's character is a genius in that universe. She pushes her daughter, Joy, to the brink of insanity and then breaks the multiverse at that point where she can start accessing other verses.
Also with the glove.
Yeah, and so what it starts is a chain reaction of Jobu Tupaki going and deleting other universes until she can find the one where maybe that's the one that can save me. If not, I'm gonna peace out into this bagel and commit suicide. There's a lot of messages throughout this movie, a lot. And one of the main messages that I loved was the anti-suicide message, which is very plain. And some people had some complaints about it being nuanced. I think it was. I'll have to find the article, but
listen, anytime it's an anti-suicide message, it's a good message.
Right, and that's what I believe. So, it's one of the biggest messages in the movie, but also the bagel is the other people from the Alphaverse think it's a tool that's going to destroy all the universes.
Right.
So you're both right.
Okay.
That doesn't happen very often.
Usually it's just me.
Yeah. So Jobu Tupaki is
True.
quite the villain. She can access anything at any time because they're all just particles within this multiverse, right? And she starts to explain that when Evelyn has finally made the step to being the one. And it's a really cool little scene where it mirrors the Matrix in the sense of when Neo doesn't turn around and run and he fights in the subway.
Right.
And it's the start of Act 3 where we're back in the laundromat and Evelyn knows that Joy can access everything everywhere all at once. Yeah. And so they go upstairs. They have a really great scene upstairs in the apartment where Stephanie Hsu is just fantastic in the scene where she's like, oh, she pretends to get hit and hurt, and then Wayman walks in.
I fell on the couch.
Yeah, and then I love the part where they're like, you got to sit on the crack, because nobody sits on the crack. But now we're into Act 3 where the heart really starts getting ripped out, and we have really incredible scenes like the rock scene. We have scenes like Evelyn kind of getting to her wit's end in the laundromat, and then we also have maybe the greatest scene. It is the Kung Fu Universe scene with Michelle Yeoh and Ki, who I can't. See, I should just call him Ki.
Yep.
Michelle and Ki's characters, they in that universe they didn't make it. In fact, they didn't even make it to America. They split up before then, and she became this kung fu actress and big time actress, and apparently he became a big time rich person as well. So, really cool theme of destiny here as well.
You can see that muscle on the pink.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a different universe than what this one is, where they have this talk in the alleyway, and you start seeing, okay, now Evelyn is on a journey of redemption, a journey of mending fences, and it all starts with Wayman. And it's like the first...
I would not at first, though. I would say it's very much she's giving in to the darkness at first. Because she just basically starts.
When they go through the crack in the couch, and Joy shows her the bagel. Yeah, she has I'd say she has a moment of weakness more so.
Oh yeah,
where she's like, oh, maybe
You're right.
Maybe you're right. Yeah. Maybe this is the way I save my daughter is I also go in there with her. But anyway, so she then gets like the first leg of her journey with Waymond. Tell me about that one, Eric.
Well, I was just going to say that the temptation, I would say that the Joe Boo character kind of tempts her with this nihilistic approach, and Evelyn starts to act out that nihilistic. Yeah. She starts to act out nihilistic in all of her other.
That's right.
Universes and she starts to kind of hurt everybody like around her, if you will, and so as her and Jobu are walking, her and Joy are headed towards the bagel, Waymond has this, because in the alpha Waymond is a tougher guy, but he still has this sensitivity to him, but it's definitely hidden. But the Waymond from her, that's the consistency across all of his characters, is that there's a sensitivity to him and a heart to him. And really, he is the heart of the entire movie. He really does bring you that emotional, like at least kickstarts that emotional thing, where he's not just pleading with he's pleading with his daughter, and he's pleading with his wife to just stop fighting, instead just be kind, be kind to each other and love each other. Nice. Like, even if things don't really make all that much sense, like just love each other, and that's what really, I think, really moves the movie from just a Matrix, mom in the Matrix type deal to you really start to see some emotions, because you can see that the Jobu character really just does want to die. And that's a theme that Joy has, as her, I wouldn't say her character in the universe that she's in. I don't think she's suicidal in that universe, but she's definitely depressed, and she's definitely finds it difficult because she's gonna live a different. She's gay in that, and she doesn't know how to tell her mom, or she doesn't really think her mom understands or is gonna approve. And her dad is like whatever, and the grandpa's like whatever. But yeah. So I think. Yeah, I think that the really cool part about that is this is when the heart and the emotions of this movie really start to kick in, is when Waymond starts to make this plead to both of them. And I think Evelyn at that point kind of has this existential like wake up, and you can see it, then see it. And this is the neat part, is like you see her awaken in like all of her universes at the very kind of middle of Act 2. She starts to awaken because she's now aware that she can bounce around to all these different ones, and she has an influence on all of these other ones. And then she starts down a darker path, and you can do that, but then she has this epiphany, and now she's moving away from that darker path towards this more Waymond influenced path, and that's when things really get good as far as like things emotionally. At least that's the way I
like that. Well, I was gonna say, I like, when they're showing the bagel and she's kind of explaining the position of nothing really matters. It's that can be tempting, to live a life, because that's why she kind of does that, like goes a little crazy, as I would say, and just kind of whatever. Because living a life knowing like nothing matters is easy. I mean, that's a lot of weight off of you if you just live life like, nothing matters. I'll do whatever I want.
Yeah, bro. Nothing matters.
I don't care about anyone. If I hurt you, whatever, it doesn't matter, because none of this matters. Like, that can be a pretty freeing thought, and very tempting. Yeah. But this movie does an excellent job of reeling that back in with Key, and again, just love. That's his weapon.
Yeah.
It's a true weapon.
What I love about it is, and I forgot about it, so thanks, Eric, for bringing it up, is that whole like dark period that she does have, where she does start lashing out, and Like she takes a baseball bat to the window to washing machines.
Signs
She
to the
collapses,
newspapers.
and it looks like she collapses into this rock. And then all of a sudden we
Yeah.
have this rock scene, which is
Clever. Gosh,
like you can't
super clever.
like if you're sitting there and you're like, oh, the rock scene, then GTFO, because this
Yeah.
is like really cool art.
But keep
You
listening.
know,
It was a clever way to tell the story.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
just a great.
and it was funny. You know, it had
It
humor.
was.
And
It
I
was.
love a little bit of world building in it, where she's like,
Yeah.
you know, most of them end up like this. They just didn't have the will to live, and so
Yeah.
they just end up as rocks. It's pretty cool. And so right after this dark period is when Waymond reaches down from the depths and pulls her from the darkness. And you see this, and it's really highlighted in the scene in the line of, you know, in another life I would have been happy to just do taxes,
To just do
laundry and taxes with you,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
Talking to the rich one.
Yeah.
okay. That's like up there as like one of the best lines of all time.
Yeah.
You know,
It's what
Well, and
matters
that-
is
and that-
love
and that's what I was-
with who you should be with. And,
yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I was alluding to earlier when I
Yeah.
said, you know, especially if you're married and you you have someone in your life that you love, and even if you're not married, but being married is it's a commitment that you make to someone above and beyond anything else, and you know that you'll put them first no matter what, and so when I watched the scene, and this is where it really got emotional for me, because it was just like, you know, these two people are supposed to be together.
Yeah.
You know, they're supposed to be together, and so for him, you know, because he was driving the divorce at the very beginning, like he had the papers and was ready to drive them apart, but for them to have this moment where they connect in another universe where they didn't get together, but they have this connection, and you can just see this, and it's like, man, is that how it is for me? You know, like in other, if there are multiverses out there, do I always end up with Stacy? You know, do I always?
Right.
I'd like to think that I do. Like, you know,
Yeah.
that I always end up with her, and that our love transcends not just, which one of my favorite movies is Interstellar, and that's the exact same thing, and it has a singularity in it as well. You know, and it's that love transcends all time and space, and I think in this it really does, you know, and that's really the ultimate. And then you move on to the relationship between, she moves on to what the movie truly is the relationship between Evelyn and Joy, and you know, and her explaining to Joy that even if it doesn't matter, even if nothing doesn't matter, and the universe is collapsing or whatever, I still only want to be with you.
Yeah.
Like you're my daughter. I love you, and I always want to be with you. And if that means, you know, it's the end, then so be it, you know. And so, and I think that's all any kid, you know, like I said, I don't watch a lot of movies that are mom based, and and it's probably not a coincidence. They don't make a lot of mom daughter movies like that, you know.
Yeah.
Like they do father son movies, and I don't think they do them quite to this level, you know, or father and daughter
Right.
movies and stuff like that. But this has a great story of a daughter and a mother with a fractured relationship, and how do you get back to, you know, where you were, or where you could be, and I just
No,
it got me in the feels, man. It got me in the feels
Oh,
on that
yeah.
last bit, you know.
Perfect.
they started the wound. They opened up the wound with Waymond,
Yeah,
and then she mends the fences with her dad, and
Yeah.
with Jamie Lee Curtis,
yeah,
and then the showstopper of just crazy emotion is this relationship with her daughter.
right.
And, you know, she has to, in order to heal, she has to let her go. You know,
Right.
and she lets her go. But what's crazy is what led up to that, and how they are it's, you know, George Lucas style, going through different universe. You know, there's the laundromat scene, there's the scene at the IRS building where the bagel is,
Right.
and there's
With all those different characters.
And then it, you know, what leads up to this point is Evelyn has now had her Neo moment, you know, literally, where she stops bullets. And then she turns them into googly eyes, which was so good. Just like, it was so good.
And I loved how they used them during the awards. I don't know if you saw they had the googly eyes with them.
Oh, I didn't.
It was great.
But there was actually one of my favorite scenes is the montage of Raymond. I keep calling him Waymond. And there's that one scene where he's got the big red ball in his hand, and he's smiling at the googly eyes, and he looks over, he's like, whoop, and he runs off, and it's just like the cutest little thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So then when she has her Neo moment, she is now like, I think Jobu even says that you're like me now, or maybe that was a little bit earlier, but when she stops the bullets, she understands Waymond's message, and it's love conquers all and kill them with kindness. And then so she goes through this little montage of beating these guys up and killing them with kindness.
BDSM to one guy, like it just cracked me up.
Well, what's funny is that one guy is one half of the directors.
We're the directors,
Really?
Yeah. He's the guy.
With the ball gag.
He's the guy who likes it a little on the rough side, I guess.
His own gray room or whatever it is.
It was an honest trailer. It was like, now you get to live out your BDSM fantasy with Michelle Yeoh or something. Somebody brought that up, I feel like.
He wrote the whole movie just for that scene.
Yeah.
That's why he did it.
And, you know, so Evelyn has to let Joy go. And it's hard. But once she does, Joy realizes, like, oh, maybe I didn't want to be let go, and puts her hand out and, you know, save me. And then what comes after that, the conversation outside in the parking lot, is just like, I'm like, the second time I was watching it, I was still crying. Like it's
the conversation
pure
comes
emotional.
before she reaches her hand out.
Does it?
Because
you are the most recent watcher of this movie.
Because Evelyn essentially goes, "Okay, go," but then she remembers, like, no, that's what her family did to her. So we go to the parking lot, and she turns around, and then she goes, no, and walks up, and she's like, "You are fat, you are this," but, like, you know, and does the whole.
You never call, even though we have a family plan.
you never call, even though we have a family plan.
Good call. Either way, it culminates in this just amazing send-off of a movie where the family is, you know, you get the third title card all at once. And it's really cool just how that the family is in a better spot. You know, obviously a movie's going to have to have a happy ending to finalize everything. It's a process from there for them to, you know, keep mending the fences, I guess. That's a process. But they do have this little happy moment where they go to the IRS building. And the best part about this is, well, I guess the sweet, tender, emotional kiss that Evelyn and Waymond have, where you can tell a little nervous at first to do PDA, which apparently for first-generation immigrants is you don't do PDA. So that I guess that was very accurate. But when Jamie Lee Curtis's character says, "Evelyn, are you paying attention?" and she turns to her and she goes, "I'm sorry, what did you say?" That right there shows how much growth Evelyn has had over the movie, because before that happened, she always pretended like, I'm not wrong. You didn't explain this well enough, or, you know, some of that.
Right.
And now she's in a place where she can accept herself and be wrong, or admit, like, hey, I wasn't listening. Can you repeat that? So
Right.
That's like
There's a lot of growth.
That's a lesson I need to learn from this movie. So yeah, I love how they show the growth through that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
This movie's not supposed to get a sequel, but really, honestly, the if it ever does, it'd be really interesting to see how they deal with the aftermath of this. You know,
Yeah.
if the two most powerful characters in the universes, as in plural, how does that work out? Maybe they team up and they fight.
Yeah, like I
some other multiverse villain.
Hope there's no sequel to it. I mean,
I hope not. Yeah.
And I'll say too, I think my favorite thing about the end is that she chose to live the universe of laundry and taxes on repeat. Like after all that, she could have shoved herself into
the Kung Fu universe,
the Kung Fu, all that stuff. And in the end, it was
that's a good point.
Go back to the love. She chose the.
I didn't even think about that.
Doing laundry and taxes every day with you.
I think I'm going to cry now. That's a really good point.
But it was just, that's, I was like, I thought that was great. I was like, and that's where she ended, back where she started.
Yeah.
Because that's where she was the happiest.
That's a really good point. Well, speaking of the directors, the Daniels, they won Best Director. These guys are about to blow up in Hollywood. They've already been tapped by Star Wars to helm an episode of The Skeleton Crew, which is a TV show being filmed right now starring Jude Law. So excited to see what they can do with Star Wars. We've already seen what they can do with The Matrix and Marvel as this one Best Picture, while the other Multiverse of Madness won Movie of the Year.
Do you think Disney was like, shh? I wish we got these guys to flesh out the multiverse.
I don't know, but we've talked at length about the actors, but the people behind the cameras are really what made this movie as well. The special effects team was 5 guys, and they were doing all the special effects in their garage during COVID, which is just insane. There's a scene, and now that I've edited my first video of all time, I have a billion times more respect for what Eric has done for this show and for all those editors out there. There's a scene in here where there's like 72 frames of different Evelyns and different universes, and it's different every time. And the way that came together was
so cool,
insane. Some of the behind the scenes stuff is really cool.
Yeah, why you can see very easily why that one won Best Editing.
That's the other one was Best Editing.
The Best Editing.
Probably for this Oscar one scene.
For that one. And I mean, just that scene alone, I'm sure it was. But yeah, you can see how good how great editing can make a great movie, can help a great movie.
Yeah.
Versus. You can watch other stuff and think, my God, did you just pull somebody off the street to edit this together? Or, there's
right.
Probably the other Multiverse of Madness movie had some weird editing.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I don't know, but editing was, there was a scene where Jobu and Evelyn were fighting, and every fist thrown was a different it was taken to a different universe. And
right,
it was just,
right.
I mean, the editing was so cool in this movie. So,
I have to say, we haven't talked about it, but the fight scene where the guys leap onto the
you should back that up and tell them the reasoning why they are doing this. So just as a refresher,
right? So a fun little thing that they did in the Matrix, they have this. In the Matrix, they have like this program that runs where you take the pill and it starts to change your signal so that they can find you inside the power plant and get you out. And so you have these signals, and then when you're in the Matrix, you can you go to these jump places and you can get out through these various jump portals that they have. Well, in this one, they did something where they made it so that you have to do something that's statistically improbable that it would ever happen.
Like
so
chapstick.
in addition to saying a specific phrase, of words that you would never say, you also have to do something that you would never do. Like I said earlier, like the when Wayman eats the chapstick, and stuff like that, it allows him to be to be tracked by this software that allows him to go into it. And so you have to do like these. You have to do like this bizarre action and then like say this bizarre phrase, and that's what causes you to jump. And so in one of the fight scenes, and I love that they digitally like blocked it out so you don't actually see.
It was so funny.
It was so great.
It's like what's going on.
Yeah, so these guys are running with no pants on, and they block out the parts that nobody wants to see.
Yeah,
and then
the commentary from Joy is the best.
Yeah, and then when they jump in the air and try and land on these
sharper objects.
They're dildos. They're dildo objects.
They're plugs
and
for certain
butt plugs,
right, butt plugs, So, anyhow,
not that I would know anything about those,
but the best thing too is
completely absurd. I had to look it up. Somebody had to tell me about it. So, Mrs. Stemple, if you're still watching the episode at this point, I had to, and my dad, I had to look it up. I had no idea what those things were. So,
well, the best thing about it is it's an award that the IRS agent got for being an auditor.
There were two. Yeah,
it was literally a thing that gets rammed.
You got to deal with a lot of bullshit to get one.
Right? Yeah. That was such a great.
What a setup!
Gosh, it was such a great monologue.
What a setup! If you watch some reaction channels on this movie, there's a lot of people who are like, that looks awfully a lot like a butt plug. And then they get to the butt plug.
When they're fighting, and you can see the things just hanging out their backside.
Right.
Everything's blurred, but you can still see it.
But you can still see it.
But I love Joy's line where she's like, "Oh, are they trying to put that up their butt?" She has that little scene with Wayman, and she's like, just her commentary lines were really funny. Where she's like, "Ooh, I think they lost their powers or something," and "Ooh, I think he's trying to stick that up his butt."
Yeah.
And the other really crazy one, the paper cut scene.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, you want to talk about like?
I didn't like that either.
Nope. I'll go
she
take a nap.
Trying, and I'm like, God, please make it stop.
Yeah, that was key. And then he finally got it, and it even squirts blood on the screen, which is really cool little ad. So, listen, this movie had everything, and I would take a drink, go back and watch this episode, and take a drink every time we say everything, because you'll have a good time watching this episode. So this movie. What do you think
of music?
Oh gosh, how did I forget the music? The music is something I didn't notice on the first turn, and I'm starting to notice that might be a little bit of a trend with me, because I noticed the music better the second time in Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
But the second time I went and watched this movie, I was like, this score is amazing, and it's unlike any score that I've heard before. I loved it. I've been listening to it ever since they won the Oscar for Best Picture. So, what did you think?
I thought it was great. I really did. I really did. I think it was subtle when it needed to be subtle, and it was glorious when it needed to be glorious, and
in your face when it needed to be in your face.
And in your face when it needed to be. And when it needed to break your heart, it broke your heart. It just helped those scenes move along. Now, I've read a little bit about it afterwards, and the directors asked this band to do it. It was like a 3-member band, but they asked them to each do it individually, not together, and so it took them like 2 or 3 years to write the music for this for this film. So yeah, and there's like 49 different tracks and 2 hours total of music for this, which I thought was just, that reminds me of, it reminds me of Howard Shore's investment in the Lord of the Rings, because he had hours and hours and hours of music for those movies, and he had like a written history of each character and each of the, you know, the like the Rohirrim, like he knew like what instruments they would, these are the type of people they are, so this is the type of instrument that they would have, you know, and so that's the sound you got for that. It's completely, and so kind of reading more about what these guys did, it's pretty impressive.
That is cool.
Impressive,
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
I wonder what Jason thinks about that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, how did I forget the music? That
Multiverse of Madness soundtrack.
We'll close things out here with final message and just give your final thoughts on the movie. I'll start with you, Morg.
Fantastic movie. Watch it. I plan on watching it again. Remember, don't give up. Love conquers all.
There you go.
That's the message. Love conquers all.
Absolutely. Eric?
Yeah. I will end on kind of not a financial note, but I'll bring in a little bit of financial stuff here.
Okay.
So this movie, this movie came out in early 2022, where it was still not sure. People, I think, were still unsure of whether they wanted to go back to the movie theaters, you know. And so Top Gun Maverick is really the movie, you know. I should say the Multiverse of Madness is the one that really, you know, the real best picture for the
Best thing I've ever seen.
Yep. Came out. This movie was made, I think the budget was like between 14 and 25 million, something like that. $25 million. And this movie is phenomenal. It's dynamite, you know, and I don't know how much of it was green screen. You know, I don't know a lot of it. I will say it didn't do as well at the box office. You know, I think it only pulled in like 115 million, which still on a budget of 25 million, shoot, that's, you know, that made a ton of cash for them. But I will say that when you focus on storytelling, character development, and the important fundamentals of good movie making and good storytelling, you get movies like this, and none of it felt cheap. None of it felt like trying to get points for political stuff here, or social issues here, or anything like that. Everything felt natural. Like the whole thing felt natural. Like I know that it was with an Asian cast and all that, but I felt like that didn't matter. Like I didn't feel anything one way or the other about, oh, this should have been should have been telling this story or whatever. Like I connected and had emotional connection to these people like right away, all these characters like right away, because you're like, hey man, they're all working so hard and they're all, you know, doing this, and everybody kind of gets into these funks emotionally. So it was a story that spoke to it's a story that spoke to me on a lot of different levels, and I connected with it right away. Like I said, I did have to rewind some stuff just to make sure. And I think at some point I would like to go back and watch it again, because I'm sure I probably would pick up a lot more stuff. Yeah. But man, like do the fundamentals right, and you'll be just fine. You know, you'll be just fine. And that's what they did here, is they did the fundamentals right, had a great original idea, or at least, you know, something close to an original idea, or just kind of expanding on some other stuff. And I just think it's funny that we had right at the same time, you have this is a multiverse movie, and it's amazing and it's incredible. And then you have Doctor Strange, which is a multiverse movie, and
You mixed that up.
there was some cool stuff in there, but not like this. Not like this at all.
Yeah, I would like this to get a re-release in theaters, so I can go see the theater.
They did. Well, you know what's
Good
funny
idea.
is they did re-release it in December, because in like the December timeframe they did put it back out into theaters. I think because it had done so well with the awards, the early awards stuff,
okay.
they wanted to kind of freshen
They
it in
definitely
people's
need to do
mind.
it now.
But yeah, I tend to agree with you.
I'd go see it in theaters. Hell yeah.
Yeah,
I need to. I need to watch it on my screen and kind of
Yeah.
check that out, because it's like because again I watched it on my phone,
Yeah.
and on an airplane.
this has
so.
to be
Go
on
watch it on the big screen
Yeah.
for
on a
sure.
minimum of 55-inch TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched it many times on my big TV. So
Yeah.
it's there's a lot of themes that we've talked about throughout the entirety of the Nerd Rundown shows. One of them being let the storytellers tell their story, and I think that this movie, if it got the multiverse of madness craze about it beforehand, I don't know if it does as well. I think people build a certain bias into things, and it would just be, I don't know. I just feel like with it flying under the radar at the beginning of its run may have helped it in the long run. It won Best Picture, and it was released in April. Like, that just doesn't happen. The Oscar season is from November to February, I think it is.
Yeah.
And if your movie's not released in that time frame, it's not. This is just solely
People don't
because
usually remember it.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
don't really remember.
also, I feel like it's just Oscar season, or the Academy being like, these are the rules. So who knows?
Cloud people.
But there's let the storytellers tell their story. These two guys wrote this movie. One of the Daniels is his parents are first generation immigrants, so he lived that life. He understands how confusing it is, and they really show that well in the beginning of the movie when they go from speaking Mandarin to English, and then when Gong Gong comes in, they're speaking Cantonese, and it's like, oh man, we have it good. Let me just say that, because that sounds really hard, really hard.
Right,
So
yeah.
they nailed that. That kind of what it's like to be a child of a first generation immigrant in Stephanie's
non-English speaking
immigrant. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Stephanie Shu's character really, they add another layer through her being a lesbian. So not only does she have to deal with this other stuff, now she's also a lesbian, and it's like,
and it plays into that, the heritage, the culture, that
absolutely
I think that's why
willing
helps
to
the
accept
whole
that
mother-daughter relationship with this, because we all, while we don't live that life, we've all heard the stories. We hear the comedians talk about it.
right.
How strict that life is with a lot of the families like this. So it plays into that, and
and
it helps with the story.
And again, this movie, it just touches every emotion, and when a movie can do that, that's what it's all about. And that's when movies are magical, and they can touch every emotion and make you laugh and make you angry and make you sad and make you happy and entertain you with some freaking kung fu. Holy cow. Some sick ass kung fu in this movie. So I love this movie. I remember watching it and just being like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to talk about it. I got to really push hard on this, and I've been pushing Andor, so I know they're not going to pay attention to it. But
I got there.
Turns out, Eric got there. Morgan finally got there on this one. He's got some work to do on Andor, but this is a movie that since I watched it, when you're like, you start thinking about a certain car and you start seeing that car everywhere. I started hearing stories about this movie, and one of them is we were at a comedy show one night, and Banana used to work in the comedy business, and she was talking to a comedian who was like, all he could talk about when he was not on stage was Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to realize that this is a special movie. It's a very special movie because everybody who watched it is in love with it. Now, I say that, and Meg has had to watch it over the last couple of days in 15-minute segments.
You can't watch this movie like that.
I don't think it has the same impact doing that, Meg.
No,
so you're
gonna
gonna
sit down and watch it.
Sit down and watch it all at once. All at once. So yeah. Anyway, love this movie. This is in the pantheon of really great movies, and I am on the no sequel train. It needs to be all by itself.
This is it.
Yeah.
I will enjoy this movie for a long time without a sequel.
I will say that just in watching the Oscars stuff, the other two films that I actually am interested in watching out of that whole list are
Top Gun Maverick. We know.
Well, I've seen that one. Of course.
The Whale.
Is The Whale. Brendan Fraser's The Whale. He looked terrific. Congratulations to him. I mean, talk about a guy who's had an up and down career. You know, just he got on the wrong side, I think, of he stood up for somebody and he stood up for somebody and he got on the wrong side of one
I don't
of
know
the
that story.
The producer, what's his name, that went to jail for
Weinstein?
Weinstein, yeah.
Weinstein?
He got blacklisted by him and cost him a lot of jobs and stuff. So, and he's had some health problems because of the stunt work that he did. But he looks terrific and terrible at the same time in that whale role. And that looks like it looks really good. And then All Quiet on the Western Front looks really, really good as well. That looked really good. So those are two coming out of Oscar season that I want to see. But I can tell you, nothing's going to top this movie. This is definitely my number one for the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Even more than Multiverse of Madness.
I don't know.
Just accept it.
It's just a slight nudge. It's just a slight.
There was no memory store in this one.
There was no piano fight and everything everywhere.
Although watching Reed Richards get sliced up, in the little straws is
and then pop. Well, listen. Last note is we talked about this in the rundown, and we ended the rundown with the trailer train. A really great trailer train. It was like a string of Asian excellence, and I am all about that.
Sure.
They need to get their due, and they are getting their due now, and I love it. I want to see more Michelle Yeoh. I want to see more. Ki Hoi Kwan, he's going to be in Loki season 2, which is just amazing. Stephanie Hsu, you can see her in Joyride coming up, which looks like maybe the funniest movie of all time.
Yeah.
Jamie Lee Curtis, she's doing her thing. You could always go back and watch her on True Lies.
It better be Raccoonie or whatever.
Oh, get a spin.
Raccoonie.
Get a Raccatoonie. Raccatoonie.
Yeah.
You mean Ratatouille? No, Raccatoonie. That would be a good spin. That would be the one spinoff I would prefer. Actually, if there is a spinoff, I would like to see more Stephanie Hsu and things. She was phenomenal.
She really was terrific.
She needs to be more.
All right, go watch this movie if you haven't watched it. I don't know why you'd be at this point if you haven't watched it, but maybe just like listening to us talk. Who knows?
Even what we told you is not a good enough representation of this movie. You need to go see it.
It's like it's one of those movies where they're like, well, why would I like it? I'm like,
you just will.
You will. It's got something for everybody. So, I look forward to the next time I watch it, which probably won't be too far from here. So, thanks for joining me on this review of this incredible movie, and let us know what you think in the comments. Leave a like, hit the subscribe button.
What was your favorite scene?
Yeah, what's your
favorite part?
I think I'm gonna go with the fanny pack scene.
Yeah,
that opened my eyes to that movie in a way that was like, okay, wow, I gotta really start paying attention to what kind of movie I'm in. So, All right. Well, with that being said, we'll see you all in the future. The Nerd Rundown presents.
See ya. Bye.
This is.